Today's episode off the timeline is titled, What if Louisville built the power conference that changed college football? What if I told you that in 1991, right after a Fiesta Bowl win, a basketball school in Kentucky quietly started the chain reaction that reshaped modern college football? Not Texas, not Notre Dame, not Miami, but Louisville. And this is alternate history, but if you follow the money, the ego, and the timing, it becomes disturbingly plausible. Because in this universe, Louisville doesn't wait for an invite. They build the league themselves, and it changes everything. Now let's set the table for the problem no one was solving. It's 1991. The Bull Coalition's not formed yet. The BCS doesn't exist. Independents can win huge games, but they have no structural protection. Louisville just won a major bowl game in 1990. They're nationally ranked, and still they're vulnerable because independence means no guaranteed bowl access, no TV leverage, no long-term stability. So instead of waiting to be chosen, Louisville calls a summit. West Virginia, Southern Miss, Memphis, East Carolina, Cincinnati. The pitch is simple. Independents can win games, but they can't win contracts. This is alternate history, but it solves a real 1991 problem. And the Riverfront Athletic Conference is born. And that sets the table to slow respect. You may be thinking to yourself that Louisville didn't have the power to pull this off. And in 1991, you'd be right. The early RAC is not respected. It's seen as fun, upset prone, but not elite. The first few years are a perception battle. West Virginia goes undefeated in 1993. The media still shrugs. Virginia Tech rises. The national press still has questions. Then 1999 happens. Virginia Tech gets to the BCS National Championship game as a RAC champion. That's the legitimacy breakthrough. The league doesn't win it all yet, but the door is starting to get kicked open. And that sets the table for Miami coming in 1996. You may be thinking to yourself that Miami would never join a Louisville-led conference. In 1991, you'd be correct. In 1996, the incentives change. The Big East feels unstable. TV money is consolidated. The RAC has a title game, a bowl tie-in, a revenue model, and growing perception. Miami joins, and immediately the narrative changes. The RAC is not scrappy anymore, it's dangerous. And that sets the stage for the betrayal year of 1998. You may be thinking to yourself that the SEC would never just sit there and watch this thing happen. Well, they don't. In 1998, the SEC quietly probes Virginia Tech. They want a border state expansion piece. Virginia Tech leaks it. The RAC nearly fractures. Louisville counters with a renegotiated revenue structure and performance bonuses. The league survives. While this is alternate history, this is exactly how realignment wars were fought. Not with press conferences, but with leverage. And that sets the table for the title that changes perception in 2007. The first real RAC national title doesn't come from Louisville. It comes from Virginia Tech in 2007. And that matters because once the league wins it all, it stops being theoretical. The narrative changes from can they compete to they already did it. You may be thinking to yourself that one title wouldn't change the hierarchy, but perception in college football lags behind proof, and proof sticks. And that sets the table for 2012 and Miami leaving. You may be thinking to yourself that Miami would eventually outgrow the league. They do. In 2012, during the superconference arms race, Miami leaves for the ACC. And this is the existential moment. Louisville faces a decision. Chase the SEC invite or preserve the league they built. They turn down the SEC publicly. That transforms Louisville from founder to guardian. And that sets the table to does Louisville regret it? For a brief window, yes. When Miami leaves, when revenue gaps widen, when SEC payouts dwarf everyone else. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Without the RAC, Louisville likely becomes a middle tier ACC member or a forgotten Big East remnant or an SEC afterthought. Instead, they are permanent, not dominant, permanent. And that sets the table to the 2025 consolidation. Now, now this is the stress test. SEC and Big Ten payouts soar. The playoff expands. Brand gravity intensifies. The Big Ten eyes Virginia Tech. The SEC calls Louisville again. You may be thinking to yourself that the league collapses here. It doesn't, because the Keystone programs synchronize their stability. They signal no one leaves alone. The RAC becomes a Power Four survivor, not the richest, but structurally sound. And that sets the table for Louisville finally winning. And for this, we flash back to 2016. And this is the poetic symmetry. The founder does win it all later. Louisville captures a CFP era national title in 2016. They built it, they defended it, and they eventually won it. And that closes the arc. Now, this is an alternate history, but every domino in the story follows real incentives: money, prestige, fear, leverage, survival. Louisville didn't become the king of college football. They became architect of their own permanence, and that might be more powerful. And if you enjoy this alternate history universe and want to see more full ecosystem what ifs like this, hit like, drop a comment telling me, does Louisville eventually win multiple titles? Or does the next generation sell out for superconference money? And subscribe, because the next universe we build might be even more chaotic. See you in the next one.